Hello, you are watching the Technology Magazine show, brought to you by Technology Magazine, AI Magazine, Cyber Magazine, Mobile Magazine, Data Center Magazine, and everyone here at BizClik. My name's Neil Perry, and we're here to bring you all the latest news, analysis, and opinions from the world of technology every single month. Now, joining me today is the editor of Technology Magazine, Marcus Law. Hello, Marcus. How are you doing?
Hi, Neil. I'm really well, thank you.
Good. Jolly good. Well, before we get on to it, have you actually caught up on sleep from all the Apple announcements over the last?
Yeah, busy evening yesterday. Yeah, a lot to get our teeth into. So check the Technology Magazine website for all of those announcements. Particularly excited by the headset, though. I think $3,500 is. It's a fair whack, but it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, it would have been nice for us to get hold of one rather ahead of time for you to wear the duration of the show. That would have been a nice talking point. But
you could have been in 100-inch glory on my screen, Neil.
That would have been a terrifying thought for you. Anyway, in association with a very large cup of very strong coffee, Marcus, what have we got coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, let's just take a moment, to our audience, say hello by posting in the comments here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And I think we've got some stuff about the poll as well, haven't we?
Yes, indeed. Do go and vote in our LinkedIn poll. This month, it's all about AI in the world of healthcare. Marcus, what's the actual subject? What did we settle on in the end?
Yeah, so we actually look into a recent study by Pew Research Center, which found that 60% of Americans would be uncomfortable with providers relying on AI for their healthcare. So it involved 11,000 US adults, and the results found that only 38% thought AI being used to do things like diagnose diseases and recommend treatments would lead to better health or outcomes for patients. And 33% said it would actually lead to worse outcomes. So this month, we asked, how comfortable would you be with relying on AI for making critical healthcare decisions about your treatment? The options we gave were completely comfortable, somewhat comfortable, and uncomfortable.
Interesting. We'll find out what everyone thinks later on, but let's be frank, if people are ill, half the time people just go online and search it anyway, which is, I know a fair few people who work in healthcare, and they don't like Dr. Google. They don't like it when people search these things. Anyway, before we look at the latest editions of the magazines, which are fantastic, there's lots to go through those if you haven't had a flick through yet. Let's give a quick preview of the upcoming Tech Live virtual show, which is taking place this week on the 8th of June.
Join the #1 virtual event disrupting the industry at Tech Live London. Join me, Neil Perry, and over 20 industry executives with keynote presentations, fireside chats, and multiple industry-leading forums too. We'll be discussing themes from enterprise, technology, digital transformation, cloud and 5G, data and analytics, AI and machine learning, and of course, sustainability and technology. We'll see you on the 8th of June.
Yes, I do love it when they get me to do those promos. They are so much fun, as you can see. So yeah, we are bringing together some amazing experts. Do have a look on the website to see who's joining us. There's some fantastic speakers, panel discussions and interactive sessions. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, do make sure you get hold of those, because what is so important with all of those sort of events is the input of the guests, of everyone who's watching. We've got, because Marcus, you're hosting stage 2, I'm hosting stage 1. The best bit about it is getting the questions and the interactions from people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the networking capabilities are there as well. It's a virtual event, but even though it's in the virtual sphere, the show presents a lot of extensive networking opportunities. It all takes place on our virtual umbrella platform. So yeah, as Neil said, still time to select get your free tickets. So yeah, sign up, and we look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Okay, now for a look at the latest magazines to hit the virtual shelves. So let's start with the latest edition of AI Magazine, where our cover story explores That's going to appear on screen in just a moment. We'll be exploring how the Internet of Things. There it is. There it is. I knew it was coming. The cover story explores how the Internet of Things devices and data are shaping the smart cities of the future. This is absolutely fascinating, this bit of work here. Monitoring everything from traffic patterns and footfalls, utility usage and emissions even. IoT sensors are the heart of smart cities like Barcelona. We hear from experts about Barcelona's Smart City Pilot, which is also fascinating, which demonstrates how the smart application of data can transform pretty much everything from shopping to transportation, enabling services for autonomous driving to augmented reality. Elsewhere in the issue, if you have a flick through, you can also explore how generative AI is fueling a revolution in data quality, and also look into how AI-powered biometrics helping fight fraud, and feature the top 10 AI consulting firms as well. This is well worth a flick through.
Yeah, and meanwhile on Technology Magazine, this month I spoke to Boris Cromrye, who's the Global VP of Automation Innovations at UiPath. And I spoke to him all about how generative AI and hyper-automation are going to drive the future of business automation. It's a really interesting conversation. A term which was coined by Gartner in 2020, hyper-automation is a disciplined, business-driven approach that organizations can use to rapidly identify, vet, and automate as many business and IT processes as possible. And as Cromrye describes, there's a number of ways in which generative AI can be used in enterprise automation, including content generation, NLP, and predictive analytics. And elsewhere in the edition, we look at the role of embedded analytics and how they can be used to gain insight from data. And we often look at the top 10 RPA companies globally.
Okay, that's well worth a look through as well. I love that cover as well. That's a fantastic bit of work. Love it. Okay, still to come after the break, we'll be welcoming today's special guest. That's Hema Purohit, the CTO for Microsoft Public Sector and Healthcare Business. We were just having a chat to her in the green room, and we're going to have a good time. Absolutely had a great laugh before we started. So hopefully we haven't burnt ourselves out already. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
There is so much opportunity. And the organizations that figure this out, they've set themselves apart. My name is Kimberly Betts. I'm the global lead of DEI for consumer, both internally and externally facing for Deloitte. So the equity activation model is based on a paper we published about 2 years ago, and it focuses on 3 different spheres of influence. The most immediate sphere is the workforce, inside the 4 walls, so to speak, of your organization. The next sphere is the marketplace. How are you showing up as a brand for the markets you serve? And then the outer sphere is what we call the social sphere. So how are you using your influence as an organization to influence policy, to try to create outcomes that are more equitable for people who are marginalized in the communities in which you live and operate? Our clients are starting to create these connections between the different spheres. It's very satisfying to see those connections starting to be made. We're becoming much more connected, everything that we do in our lives. And so this is another product of how connected people are to what people are saying, what people are doing. What you say and what you do as an organization, they have to match each other. Otherwise, people start to detect some authenticity, which tends to erode trust from a consumer perspective and from an employee perspective.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. Your company is much appreciated as ever. And it's time to welcome our special guest for today. That is Hema Purohit, for the CTO for Microsoft Public Sector and Healthcare Business in Europe, Middle East and Africa, with more than 30 years of experience helping to lead the way in bridging that gap between technology and delivering real outcomes that make a change to reality. That's quite a nice welcome. Hema, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you for the invite.
Thank you for joining us. Well, we've got a limited amount of time and an awful lot to get through. So before we get around to about our poll results and so on again, what I really want to dig in with you is looking at what you feel are the most promising healthcare technologies currently being used, and how are they going to be transforming the healthcare industry? What's your take on that?
I think we're in a time where there is a lot happening. So I think it's a great time to be in. It's a great period to be in terms of transformation. Telehealth is making great strides, and it has been since the pandemic. But just when I think that telehealth has reached its limit, it's pushing even more boundaries. So I think there's still a lot to see in that space. Artificial intelligence, absolutely. Can't go without mentioning that. It is absolutely consuming every single component and part of how we deliver healthcare right now. 3D printing, augmented and virtual reality, so virtual surgeries, being able to bring care to rural areas and vulnerable areas where perhaps technology isn't available. Wearables, health monitors, medical devices that are now shifting from being in primary care and in hospitals to the home. So care, that model of where care is delivered is completely being transformed. And next generation genomic sequencing, clinical trials are much faster. They're speeding up. The route to how we find new cures, new diseases, all of that is speeding up. So that's a snapshot. There is so much out there right now.
So let's connect Microsoft to all of this, which is obviously the hat you are wearing today. For you, how are Microsoft solutions tackling those healthcare challenges at the moment?
I think Microsoft is very unique in that the ethos around how we deliver a solution using technology is very much about putting the patient and the employee or the healthcare worker at the center of that. So everything we do, there's always technologists that want to create fantastic tools and solutions, but everything we do, and especially everything that I do, is very much focused on putting myself in the shoes of that patient or of that healthcare worker to see what can we do around helping with burnout, how can we help with fatigue, how do we help with technology debt, how do we create tools that help people to collaborate faster, more accurately, and help people to do their jobs? How do we automate? How do we actually take away that manual overload to be able to give those frontline workers the space, the thinking time that they need to spend more time with patients directly? Lots of AI around how we reduce waiting times, how we use AI in research, analytics to provide more results faster. There's a lot going on, but I would say the crux of the Microsoft solutions are very much simplicity. They are very much around putting the person first, so the user experience always comes first, and it's about what can we do to make the future better.
That's something I want to dig into a little bit more if we can, because I know I was interviewing an executive from Philips, from the medtech industry, and he said one of the most useful things that ever happened to him is he was actually at an appointment for himself, a medical appointment for himself, and they were using some kit that they built. The technician didn't know who he was, and so he was able to ask all of these questions that he'd never normally be able to ask, and was finding out all of this fascinating information, not on the metrics they would normally measure on, to find out more about their kit. So using that as a framework for this question, really, how do you actually go about getting that information from those workers that you're wanting to put at the heart of all of these solutions, and how much work goes into actually really getting that information from them?
A huge amount. These solutions are not developed overnight. They don't take a couple of months. And there are different stages in the process. There's a very exciting part of sort of any new technology, which is the innovation piece, where somebody has a great idea or there's a problem in the industry. You develop a joint working group with the customer. You start to thrash around some ideas. You figure out some prototypes, and you fail quickly and you fail fast, but you do it in a safe environment where you know that it might not work the first time, but you might learn some stuff along the way, actually, and you might figure out that the original concept and idea that you started with isn't even the thing that you want to end up delivering. You end up going somewhere else completely. So I think, having that approach where there is an open environment for a joint team to come together and co-design, co-facilitate, and co-develop is really important. Industry priorities, industry trends, one of the things that I do specifically is I always bring that outside lens back into the company. And I've done that, wherever I've worked in my career. I think that's really important. If you can't speak the language of the customer or of the industry, if you don't understand and you can't empathize, and you don't actually understand what the current issues and challenges are, then you could create the best technology in the world, but it will not work because you've completely missed the point. So, there's a lot of different ways in which we interact, but it's that fabric of how we weave our technologists and our technology back into, the industry that we are hoping to serve.
That's such a good way of phrasing it in terms of speaking the right language. I like that. When it comes to integrating this technology, though, how can healthcare organisations, in your experience, actually go about doing that? Because I guess sometimes it's easier said than done.
It is, and this is where I think that knowledge of the industry is really important. So, when we're talking about automation tools, we're talking about digitalizing tools, we're talking about creating cloud solutions where people can do research and analytics. It's really important to understand how they will feed into the pathway that you're trying to deliver. So, from a patient perspective, but also from a clinician or a nurse's perspective, at which point do those tools come into your day job? That's really important. So if we want to integrate a tool, we know that it has to become part of somebody's normal BAU. If it becomes something that you have to do in addition to your day job, it's not going to work, because right now the workload, the pressure and the burnout, we all know that's causing issues in this industry, and it won't change. The world is changing so rapidly and so quickly that even if we get over today's set of problems, we know that there's going to be a set for tomorrow. So I think being able to integrate efficiently is understanding the systems that you're working with, understanding the workflows, both from a system perspective, application perspective, but also from a manual perspective. So as a human being, as a doctor, as a clinician, as a surgeon, what are the steps that I take to be able to get through my day? And at which points can I actually use that technology? So that's very, very important, I think. I think some of the barriers typically, are always going to be that technology is complex, it takes too long, it's difficult. And personally, I would agree. I think in the past, if we look at sort of legacy transformation programs that were millions of pounds or millions of dollars and they took 10 years or 20 years, we don't need to do that anymore. Technology is at its best when it's simple, when it can be adopted by multiple users, multiple ages, and it actually solves the problem on both sides of the use case. So from the person who needs to use it to the person who's going to receive the benefit of it at the end of it. So, I know that you guys were talking about the Apple conference yesterday, and that's a perfect example. That Apple are very, very selective about how they release announcements and the functionality they're going to release. It's never a race for we want to be the top of the technology pile. It's always, what do our users want? What do they need? What's going to make their life easier? So things like the journal that they announced yesterday, the VR glass is absolutely fantastic. It's about time that they did that. And by the way, if you ever test them, I want to be part of that group, please.
Absolutely.
So it's just, it's trial and error. It's putting yourself in the shoes of the person that you're trying to help and making sure that actually you're giving them something that's going to add value. And I would say that the best technology is usually the stuff that's very, very simple. And it isn't the big transformation stuff. It's actually the small stuff. How can I automate scheduling? How can I actually automate my rota? How can I make sure that when my staff are going home at 3 o'clock in the morning, they've got some sort of a buddy app or a buddy system that makes sure that they've actually got home, safely and securely? Those things add huge amount of value. And if you can get the adoption correct in those things, then the larger transformation programs become much easier to navigate.
Because one thing we've always got to bear in mind is anything that's being integrated in any kind of healthcare organisation is chances are they're still having to operate as they are. For you, what are the challenges of integrating new technology into a already live environment where people's health is potentially on the line?
I mean, it's always a difficult one, and that's the thing that always keeps us grounded and humble, I think, in this industry. But for me, it is always the question of, if you've got an existing system, at which point do I need to make it better? If it's a system that works, then do I need to change it? Is the first question I always ask, right? And I'll always ask the customer, why do you want to make a change? And that usually draws a few eyebrows in terms of, well, don't you want the deal? Of course we want a deal. We want to be able to get tech into making a difference here. But the most important thing is do you understand why you're doing something? What's it going to achieve at the end of it? If you can understand the outcome and the benefit, then it's a valid question. I think, what is also very, very key for me is that training and enablement of the people of that group of people who are going to use the technology as they move forward. I see lots and lots of designs. I see lots and lots of innovation projects where only the clinicians are involved, actually, from a customer perspective. So the CIO is there, the clinicians are there, the chief surgeon is there. And I always ask the question, which is, well, the group of people or the persona that is going to make your project successful is the nursing and midwifery profession. They're the people day in, day out on the floor who are going to use the technology that you deliver. So why are they not part of the conversation? So for me, it's very much also about making sure that the group is representative of the people who are going to use that tech. Without that training and without that adoption, again, things are not usually that easy to do, right? I mean, if you have the right people on board, then you're on a win-win situation.
When it comes to actually affecting patient outcomes and experiences, from your perspective and the team you work with, when you've actually got involved in a project and you can directly see the translation of here's a bit of technology, here's a technical solution, and there's the outcome at the end of the project, from a personal point of view, how does that feel for you?
It's very satisfying, and that's why I'm in this industry. Healthcare for me was a personal choice, as was public sector. So it's a very difficult industry to be in because things tend to move slowly. It's difficult to get change here. But, I think throughout the pandemic, I saw attitudes change, I saw the approach change, and I saw the most important thing, which was mindset. That clicked in this industry. And I think as you start to be able to show people that something can change the way you work and make you more efficient, and it can ultimately give you more time with the patient. But even more than that, it gives you the opportunity to save another life or to make somebody's life better. You can't change that. I mean, the feeling that gives you is the reason why, yes, I'll go and bang my head against 10 brick walls, before I get to that one door that's going to open. And for me, it's not about the sale. It is genuinely, what can I do to help so that we can actually make sure that people live, much better, fulfilling and healthy lives.
Yeah, that passion is definitely coming across, because that feeling of achievement must definitely be there. But one thing, going back to the patient, how important is patient engagement here? Because there can be an incredibly intelligent, smart technical solution to a problem, but the patient might not know it's there. It's almost like a good football referee. The best ones you don't notice. Is that the way you see it? You almost want these things to be happening in the background, and the patient doesn't necessarily realise.
No, I mean, I think, look, patient engagement is 1,000%. And that's why I think patient centricity for anything you develop is really crucial. Today's patient is actually very educated. They know what they're doing. They understand their own health, probably a little bit better, I would say, than even some of the GPs, right, that are out there, because we don't see GPs very often anymore. And that relationship that used to, the traditional relationship of a GP and a patient was a very intimate one. You got to know your GP over a number of years. They knew everything about you. Today, we go to different GPs, we go to different places, we have private healthcare, etc. So the patient today knows a lot more about technology. They know a lot more about their health. So whatever you develop, in the same way that we want to train the workforce, we also need to train the patient. So, there are lots and lots of applications available on your smartphone, on your Apple Watch, or whatever smartwatch you're wearing. So again, it's that ecosystem of understanding that your solution needs to fit into different areas. So you're not just delivering to an end customer. How is it going to impact their daily life? Are they going to be able to consume what you're actually telling them? And actually, do they have a viewpoint? So the best designs come when you've got a technology company, you've got the healthcare company, but you've also got patients involved in that as well.
Time is rapidly running away from us, so I'll just go to one last question, if I can, before we get on to the results of our poll, and also ask you your thoughts on the poll as well. But I guess one question that's always significant are the ethical considerations that we've got to take into account when implementing any kind of technology in healthcare. How do you feel those concerns can be addressed?
I think, first of all, they're very valid concerns. Technology moves forward at a very, very fast pace. And, there's a lot of new developments, especially around artificial intelligence, where the technology is developing faster than we can put the governance models in place. Absolutely, everything needs to be governed. Everything does need to have an ethical base as well. And we need to use all of the forums that we've got available to us to be able to start influencing some of that policy. I have a role, in addition to Microsoft, I actually am the digital health and social care leader at BCS in the technical assurance group there. And we are actively working with all of the ministerial parties right now to try and actually influence the policy around regulation and mandating ethical boundaries. I think, technology is a very exciting space, but I'm also a realist. And for me, there needs to be a balance between the two. So absolutely, I think, before everything all of the fantastic visions we have become reality, there does need to be a little bit of grounding. We need to take a little bit of time to just stop, make sure that we're addressing those concerns, and that actually everybody is working to a consistent set of guidelines and framework.
And you have actually led us on very nicely there with that answer to our poll question. It's almost as
wasn't
if
planned. It wasn't planned.
It wasn't. We should have scripted that. Do we have a script, Marcus? I don't know. Let's just remind ourselves of what that poll question was first before we go into the results of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, excuse me. We asked our viewers, how comfortable would you be with relying on AI for making critical healthcare decisions about your treatment? So I've actually got the results in front of me. So only 10% said they would be completely comfortable with relying on AI for healthcare decisions. 55% undecided, somewhat comfortable, and the remaining 35% said they would be uncomfortable. So I think it's interesting. Still a little bit of a way to go.
All right. Oh, if we could just bring Hema back, please, because I was just going to go to her with her thoughts. There we go. I thought I'd lost you there. I wasn't sure if your feed had dropped out there. Your thoughts on that? How comfortable are you about that?
I'm somewhat comfortable. I'm in the middle because I had my eyes lasered a few years ago, and I know that the actual machine that did the 90% of the work to fix my lens and my sight was relying on AI. So, from a research perspective, from an analytics perspective, from an automation perspective, it's pretty accurate, at detecting anomalies, at looking for things. So I am somewhat comfortable. I think, like we just said, in the previous question, we need a little bit more around governance and framework and guidelines to get to that point where I would say, yes, do I want a machine to make my clinical decision? I kind of like the human touch as well.
Yeah, maybe a mix of both sounds good. Well, Hema, thank you so much for joining us today. I've really, really enjoyed your company.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And I'm afraid that is all the time we have for today. So we do hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure you join us next month. Do make sure you get your tickets for Tech Live on Thursday. We'd love to see you on the comments there and getting your questions in. Thanks for interacting today. Thank you for joining in with the poll. Thanks to Marcus. Much appreciated your time, sir. Alice, Ernie, the rest of the video production team, everyone who's worked on the show today. This has been a BizClik production, and we'll see you next time.